Under the dying sun, a frail woman clutched her two little girls close as they huddled beside a broken fence on the prairie's edge. Dust clung to their faces, and the wind carried the smell of rain that never came. Their dresses were torn, their bellies empty. The mother, Emma, tried to smile as she broke a half-rotten apple in three, whispering, "It's sweet, girls." Her voice trembled. The children chewed slowly, pretending it was a feast. Emma turned her face away, tears tracing lines through the dust. She had once known laughter, a husband, a home, but the drought had stolen it all. That evening, Emma watched the horizon for signs of life. The plains stretched endlessly, golden but cruel. Her youngest, Rosie, coughed, her lips dry and cracked. Emma prayed under her breath. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, saving everything for her girls. The world had turned its back on them, yet she still believed that kindness might exist somewhere out there, if only fate would allow it to find them. The sound of hooves came faintly through the wind. Emma froze, pulling her daughters close. Outlaws often roamed these plains, and she had nothing left to lose but them. The horse came into view, a tall chestnut stallion, its rider dressed in worn leather, dust clinging to his hat. His eyes, a deep shade of blue, scanned the broken fence and the starving family beside it. Emma rose shakily, torn between fear and hope. The cowboy reined in his horse, silence stretching between them. "Ma'am," he said softly, voice rough as gravel yet gentle as rain, "you folks lost." Emma's lips parted, but no words came. Pride battled hunger in her chest. She wanted to say no, to stand tall, but her legs wobbled beneath her. "We're fine," she lied, her voice barely a whisper. The cowboy dismounted anyway, his gaze fixed on the children's hollow cheeks. He knelt beside the girls, pulling a small leather pouch from his saddlebag. From it, he took 2 biscuits, crumbling but fresh. The girls' eyes widened. "Go on," he said, smiling faintly. Emma hesitated. "We can't accept," but before she could finish, Rosie snatched one, biting eagerly. Emma covered her mouth, ashamed, yet the cowboy only nodded, understanding written in his eyes. "I'm Ethan," he said after a moment. "Heading west, looking for work." He glanced at their empty baskets. "You folks got a place to stay?" Emma shook her head slowly. "We had a cabin once," she murmured. "It burned last spring." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air. Ethan's jaw tightened, as if the injustice stung him personally. Without a word, he reached into his saddlebag again and tossed a wool blanket toward Emma. "Take this. Nights get cold out here." She held it, trembling, feeling the warmth of a stranger's mercy. "Why would you help us?" she asked quietly. Ethan looked out toward the fading sun. "'Cause once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it," he said simply. That night, Ethan made a small fire and shared what little food he had left, dried beans and jerky. The girls giggled softly for the first time in weeks. Emma watched them, her heart heavy yet flickering with something new, hope. Ethan didn't ask questions about her past, and she didn't offer them. In the glow of the fire, he looked like a man haunted by his own ghosts. As the stars spread wide over the prairie, Emma whispered a silent prayer. Maybe God hadn't forgotten them after all. But she also knew that kindness in this land often came with a price. And though Ethan's eyes were honest, trust was something she could no longer afford easily. She would learn soon that his past carried a storm that could either save them, or destroy everything she had left. By dawn, Ethan was already packing his gear. "You should come with me," he said, surprising her. "There's a ranch a day's ride west. They need hands, and a cook." Emma stared at him, torn. She'd learned that promises on the frontier could break as easily as glass. But the way her daughters clung to his horse, laughing for the first time, made her heart soften. They rode together through the endless plain. Ethan made sure the girls took turns riding his horse while he walked beside them, his hands steadying the reins. He told them stories about wild mustangs and river gold, and though Emma tried not to smile, she couldn't help it. Something about his voice carried peace, as if the prairie itself paused to listen. By afternoon, dark clouds began to gather. The wind shifted cold and sharp. Ethan glanced at the sky. "Storm's comin'," he said. "We need shelter." They found an abandoned barn near a dry creek bed. Inside, the roof was half collapsed, but it was better than open sky. As thunder rolled in the distance, Ethan built a small fire, the orange light flickering over their tired faces. When the first drops of rain hit the roof, Emma leaned against a beam, exhaustion pulling her down. Ethan caught her before she fell, his hand warm on her shoulder. "You're running on nothing," he murmured. She blinked, dazed. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her body told another story. He didn't press her, just wrapped the blanket around her and tended the fire. The storm raged outside, but inside the barn, a strange calm settled. The girls slept curled up together, and Emma, for the first time in months, allowed herself to breathe without fear. Ethan sat by the fire, his hat shadowing his face. His mind was elsewhere, on a past mistake he could never undo. He had once failed to protect someone, and maybe, just maybe, helping Emma was his way of making peace with that guilt. Morning came clear and cool. The world smelled fresh, washed clean by rain. Emma awoke to the sound of sizzling, Ethan cooking something over the coals. "Rabbit stew," he said with a small grin. Lucky catch. She hadn't tasted real food in weeks. As the aroma filled the air, tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this for us?" she asked again. Ethan looked at her, serious. "Because everyone deserves a second chance." As they ate, laughter filled the barn, soft, hesitant, but real. The girls teased Ethan about his cooking, and he took it in stride, grinning like a man who hadn't smiled in years. But beneath that warmth, Emma sensed something else. He was running from something, too. And whatever it wasn't far behind. That night, as they prepared to leave for the ranch, Ethan's horse began to whinny nervously. He stepped outside, scanning the horizon. Far off, 3 riders moved through the fading light, fast, deliberate. His face hardened. Emma stepped beside him, fear creeping back into her chest. "Do you know them?" she whispered. Ethan's silence was answer enough. He turned back to her, voice low. "Pack your things. We have to move now." Emma hesitated, clutching her daughters close. "Who are they?" Ethan looked toward the horizon again. "Men I used to ride with, before I learned what kind of man I didn't want to be." His words hung heavy in the air as the distant thunder of hooves grew louder. The peace they'd found was about to shatter. The sound of approaching hooves filled the air, echoing like war drums across the open plain. Emma's heart pounded as Ethan quickly saddled his horse and motioned for her to climb up with the girls. "Don't argue," he said sharply. "If they find you, they'll use you to get to me." His voice carried both fear and determination. Emma obeyed, lifting Rosie and Clara into the saddle before climbing behind them. The storm clouds from the night before had passed, but another kind was brewing, one made of men and bullets. They rode hard through the tall grass, wind whipping through their hair. Ethan's jaw was set, his eyes sharp on the trail ahead. The girls clung to Emma's waist, terrified. Behind them, faint yells and gunfire cracked through the air. "Ethan!" Emma shouted, her voice breaking. "Who are they?" He didn't look back. "Old partners," he said grimly. "We did things I'm not proud of. When I walked away, they swore I'd pay for it." They reached a ridge overlooking a dry canyon. Ethan pulled the horse to a stop, breathing hard. "We'll hide down there till nightfall," he said, helping them dismount. The girls were trembling, their eyes wide. Emma knelt beside them, brushing their hair from their faces. "We're safe as long as we stay quiet," she whispered. Ethan nodded, scanning the horizon with his rifle ready. His calm steadiness was the only thing keeping her from breaking apart. Hours passed in tense silence. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. At last, Ethan lowered his rifle. "They've moved on," he said. Emma let out a shaky breath, her body sagging with exhaustion. "You risked everything for us," she whispered. He looked at her for a long moment, the corner of his mouth twitching into a faint smile. "You and your girls reminded me what's worth fighting for." By dawn, they finally reached the ranch, a sprawling property tucked between rolling hills and an old cottonwood grove. The owner, a widowed woman named Mrs. Hensley, took one look at Emma and her daughters and ordered the hands to fetch food and blankets. "You'll work for your keep," she said kindly, "but you'll be safe here." Emma could barely find words to thank her. For the first time in months, they had a roof over their heads and food that didn't come from the dirt. Ethan stayed on, fixing fences and tending horses. The girls adored him, following him everywhere he went. Emma watched from the kitchen window, her heart swelling with emotions she'd long buried, gratitude, trust, and something deeper she dared not name. Each night, After supper, they'd all sit by the fire, the girls nestled between them as Ethan played a soft tune on his harmonica. The sound wrapped around them like a promise that better days were coming. But peace on the frontier never lasted long. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the hills, Ethan spotted a rider approaching fast. His stomach sank. The man was one of his old gang, scarred, mean-eyed, carrying the past in his saddlebag. "You thought you could outrun us?" The man spat, drawing his gun. Ethan stepped forward, calm but ready. "I'm done with that life," he said evenly. "You ain't talkin' them from me." The standoff was silent, thick with tension. Then a shot rang out. The girls screamed. Emma dropped to the ground, shielding them. Ethan fired back, his shot striking true. The outlaw fell, dust rising around him. Ethan staggered, clutching his side. Blood seeped between his fingers, but he stayed standing long enough to whisper, "It's over now." When he finally fell, Emma was already there, catching him before he hit the ground. "Stay with me," she pleaded, pressing her hands over the wound. Tears streaked her face. "You can't leave us now." Ethan's gaze softened, a faint smile curving his lips. "Didn't I tell you, everyone deserves a second chance?" His hand brushed her cheek before his eyes fluttered shut. Emma cried out, the sound breaking the still air. For a moment, it felt like the world stopped. Days passed in quiet grief. Ethan lay in the small ranch cabin, his wound bandaged. Against all odds, he survived. When he finally opened his eyes, Emma was there, holding his hand. "You scared us half to death," she whispered, smiling through tears. He chuckled weakly. "Reckon I owed you at least that much excitement." Their laughter, mingled with relief, soft and trembling, but real. The following weeks brought new life to the ranch. Emma took over the kitchen, her daughters helping in the garden, their laughter echoing through the valley. Ethan, though still recovering, began teaching the girls how to ride. They called him Pa before long, and though the word startled him at first, he grew into it like a man finally finding his home. One evening, as the prairie glowed gold beneath the setting sun, Emma and Ethan stood by the corral watching the girls chase butterflies. "You saved us," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, Emma, you saved me." She turned to look at him, her eyes shining. The pain, hunger, and fear that had once defined her life felt distant now, washed away by the steady kindness of the man beside her. Ethan took her hand, rough and warm. "You know," he said, smiling faintly, "I used to think this land was cursed. Now I reckon it just needed the right people to make it feel like home." Emma leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "Then let's never leave it," she whispered. The horizon stretched before them, wild, open, endless. That night, under a sky filled with stars, laughter echoed from the small ranch house. The girls slept soundly in their beds, and Emma sat beside Ethan on the porch, his arm draped around her shoulders. The world outside still held danger and sorrow, but inside, they had found peace. Love, born out of hunger and hardship, had taken root in the most unlikely soil. And so, the woman who once fed her daughters rotten apples now watched them thrive, their bellies full, their futures bright. The cowboy who once ran from his past found redemption not through glory or gold, but through kindness. Together, they built a life stitched with hope, forgiveness, and second chances. The prairie no longer felt cruel, it felt alive, whispering with the promise of forever. Their story became one the ranch hands often told, of a starving mother, her brave little girls, and the cowboy who stopped when everyone else rode past. It wasn't a tale of riches or power, but of something far greater, the moment when one man's compassion changed everything. And in the golden quiet of the frontier, they finally found what they had been searching for all along, home.